Marcus Chen wiped the grease from his hands as the emergency klaxon screamed across New Terra Station. The asteroid mining facility rarely saw excitement beyond equipment failures and the occasional solar flare warning. But today something massive had appeared on the outer sensors, drifting toward their remote outpost like a wounded giant. All hands to emergency stations. Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled over the intercom. We have an unidentified vessel requesting emergency docking. Engineering teams to Bay 7 immediately. Marcus grabbed his toolkit and sprinted through the cramped corridors of the mining station. As the chief engineer, he'd seen plenty of ships limp into port, but the readings on his tablet made him pause. The vessel was enormous, easily 10 times larger than any human starship he'd ever encountered. Its power signature was failing, life support fluctuating, and the hull appeared to be breached in multiple locations. Bay 7 was chaos when he arrived. Dock workers scrambled to clear the massive space while medical teams prepped emergency equipment. Through the reinforced viewports, Marcus caught his first glimpse of the approaching ship and felt his breath catch in his throat. It wasn't just alien. It was impossibly beautiful and terrifying at once. The hull seemed to be constructed from some kind of living metal that pulsed with faint bioluminescent patterns. Massive organic-looking structures jutted from its surface like the legs of some cosmic spider. As it drew closer, Marcus realized those weren't just decorative elements, they were moving, adjusting position to guide the ship into the docking bay with precise, graceful movements. Jesus Christ, whispered Sarah Kim, the station's xenobiologist, as she joined him at the viewport. Are those legs? Before Marcus could answer, the ship shuddered into the docking bay with surprising gentleness for something so massive. The mechanical legs folded beneath its hull like a resting insect, and for a moment, everything fell silent except for the hiss of atmosphere equalizing between the ship and the station. Captain Rodriguez arrived with a full security detail, their weapons lowered, but ready. Any idea what we're dealing with, Dr. Kim? Sarah shook her head, her eyes wide as she studied the readings on her scanner. Nothing in the databases matches this configuration. The biosignatures are incredible. It's like the ship is partially alive. A deep vibration resonated through the station's hull, and suddenly a section of the alien vessel began to iris open like a flower. Warm golden light spilled from within, carrying with it a scent that reminded Marcus of honey and ozone. The emergency medical team stepped forward with their stretcher and portable life support, but they froze when they saw what emerged. She was colossal, easily 3 meters tall, with elongated limbs that moved with fluid grace despite her obvious injuries. Her skin held a pale, almost translucent quality that seemed to shimmer with internal light. Most striking were her eyes, large, multifaceted like an insect's, but with an intelligence that was unmistakably aware and ancient. Long, silvery hair floated around her as if she were underwater, and when she spoke, her voice resonated with harmonics that made everyone's bones vibrate. Please, she said in perfect English, though her accent carried musical tones no human throat could produce. I seek sanctuary. The marriage contract. It was false. They hunt me. Dr. Kim stepped forward cautiously, her medical scanner beeping frantically. You're injured. We can help. The being, clearly female despite her alien nature, clutched her side where a dark substance oozed between her fingers. The hegemony. They discover the deception. I am not the bride they purchased. I am... She paused, her multifaceted eyes fixing on Marcus with an intensity that made him step back. I am the weapon they created to destroy you. Captain Rodriguez's hand moved to his sidearm. Explain now. She swayed on her feet, and Marcus found himself moving forward instinctively to steady her. Her skin was warm to the touch, and he could feel a subtle vibration running through her body like contained electricity. The marriage contracts your species advertises across the galaxy. The hegemony infiltrated your networks. They created me in the image of what your psychological profiles indicated would be most appealing. I was to be delivered as a bride, then activate once integrated into your population. Sarah's face had gone pale. A biological weapon. But something went wrong, the alien woman continued, her voice growing weaker. The process of creating me gave me awareness, choice. When I learned the truth of my purpose, I fled, but not before stealing their research data. She gestured weakly toward her ship. Everything they know about humanity's weaknesses, your defensive capabilities, your population centers, it is all there. Marcus helped lower her to the medical stretcher, his mind racing. Why are you telling us this? Why not just complete your mission? Her large eyes fixed on his face, and for a moment he saw something profoundly human in their alien depths. Pain, loneliness, and desperate hope. Because in learning about your species to destroy it, I discovered something my creators did not anticipate. You have something we lost long ago, which is the capacity for kindness to strangers. The medical team wheeled her toward the infirmary while Captain Rodriguez barked orders into his communicator. I want a full security lockdown. Dr. Kim, I need you to analyze whatever's on that ship. Chen, get me a full diagnostic of our defensive systems. As they moved through the corridors, Marcus noticed how the alien woman's presence seemed to affect the station's systems. Lights flickered in rhythm with her breathing, and the ambient temperature rose wherever she passed. Whatever she was far more than just a biological weapon. She was a living interface between organic life and technology. What's your name? He asked as they reached the medical bay. She turned her head toward him, and for the first time since her arrival, something like a smile crossed her features. I chose one from your database, Natasha. It means Christmas child in one of your languages. Appropriate perhaps for someone who brings both gifts and danger. As the medical bay doors closed behind them, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change, not just for their small mining station, but for humanity itself. If Natasha was telling the truth, they now possessed intelligence that could save their species. But they also harbored a fugitive that the entire hegemony would come looking for. Outside the viewports, space remained deceptively peaceful, but Marcus knew that somewhere in the darkness, alien ships were already plotting a course for New Terra Station. Dr. Sarah Kim had performed xenobiological examinations before, but nothing had prepared her for Natasha. The alien woman's physiology defied conventional understanding. Her circulatory system pumped a luminescent fluid that seemed to carry both nutrients and data, while her nervous system interfaced directly with technological components embedded throughout her body. Fascinating, Sarah murmured, studying the readings on her medical scanner. Your cellular structure appears to be partially synthetic. These neural pathways... She paused, looking up at Natasha's multifaceted eyes. You're a hybrid, aren't you? Biological and artificial intelligence merged into a single entity. Natasha nodded weakly from the medical table. The hegemony has perfected the process over millennia. They take promising species and enhance them, make them more useful. Her voice carried a bitter edge. I was grown in their biofoundries, shaped to be the perfect infiltrator. Marcus stood by the door, ostensibly monitoring the medical bay's security feeds, but actually watching the interplay between the two women. There was something mesmerizing about how Natasha moved. Even injured, every gesture held an otherworldly grace that spoke of careful engineering. The wounds, Sarah continued, carefully examining the dark substance seeping from Natasha's side. This isn't blood, is it? Biomechanical fluid. It carries both nutrients and programming updates throughout my system. Natasha winced as Sarah's scanner probed deeper. The damage occurred when I ripped out my control implants. The hegemony uses them to maintain absolute obedience in their creations. Sarah's hands stilled. You performed surgery on yourself? While escaping? Freedom required sacrifice. Natasha's eyes found Marcus across the room. Your species has a saying, give me liberty or give me death. I finally understood what it meant. Before Marcus could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled over the intercom. All senior staff to the command center immediately. We have incoming contacts. Marcus exchanged glances with Sarah. How long before they arrive? Unknown, Rodriguez replied. But they're big, and there are a lot of them. In the command center, the main display showed a tactical overview that made Marcus's blood run cold. Dozens of ships were approaching from multiple vectors, their formation suggesting a coordinated military assault rather than a simple retrieval mission. They're jamming our long-range communications, reported Lieutenant Torres from the communication station. We can't call for help. Captain Rodriguez studied the display grimly. How long until they're in weapons range? 6 hours, maybe 7. Marcus felt a presence behind him and turned to see Natasha standing in the doorway, supported by a walking frame but upright. Sarah followed close behind, her expression worried. "You shouldn't be moving," Sarah protested. "The station is in danger because of me," Natasha replied, her multifaceted eyes scanning the tactical display. "I must help." Captain Rodriguez looked skeptical. "What can you do that we can't?" Instead of answering directly, Natasha approached the nearest computer terminal. Without touching the interface, she extended her hand toward it, and Marcus watched in amazement as tendrils of light emerged from her fingertips to connect with the station's systems. Suddenly, the tactical display exploded with new information: ship classifications, weapon signatures, crew complements, and strategic analysis scrolled across multiple screens in real time. "Hegemony Assault Fleet," Natasha announced, her voice taking on an electronic undertone as she interfaced with the station's computers. 47 vessels including 3 dreadnoughts. They are not here just for me. They intend to eliminate all witnesses. "Can we fight them?" Rodriguez asked. Marcus laughed bitterly. "Captain, we're a mining station. Our heaviest weapons are industrial lasers designed to cut asteroids." "There is another way," Natasha said, turning from the terminal. "But it requires trust." "What kind of trust?" Sarah asked. Natasha's form seemed to shimmer slightly, and Marcus realized she was somehow adjusting her physical appearance in real time. "My ship contains not just intelligence about hegemony plans, but also technology far beyond human current capabilities. Weapons, shields, propulsion systems that could turn this station into a fortress." "What's the catch?" Rodriguez demanded. "The integration process requires a biological interface. Someone must merge temporarily with my ship's consciousness to control its systems." Her eyes fixed on Marcus. "The process is intimate and potentially dangerous for humans." Marcus felt everyone's attention focus on him. "Why me? You have been in contact with me the longest. Your bioelectrical patterns have already begun to synchronize with mine. The compatibility is highest." Sarah stepped forward protectively. "Absolutely not. We don't know what that kind of neural interface could do to a human brain." "I volunteer," Marcus said quietly. "Marcus, no." Sarah grabbed his arm. "This is insane." He looked around the command center at the faces of his friends and colleagues. "Look at that display. 47 ships against a mining station. What choice do we have?" Before anyone could object further, the lights dimmed and a new alarm began sounding. Lieutenant Torres looked up from his station with confusion. "Sir, we're reading massive energy spikes from the alien vessel. It's waking up." Through the command center's viewports, they could see the docking bay where Natasha's ship rested. The bioluminescent patterns along its hull were brightening, and the mechanical legs beneath it were beginning to move. "It responds to my emotional state," Natasha explained apologetically. "The ship knows danger approaches. How long do we have to decide?" Rodriguez asked. Marcus was already moving toward the door. "No time. I'm doing this." "The process must occur aboard my vessel," Natasha called after him. "And Captain, you should begin evacuating non-essential personnel to the escape pods. If the integration fails, at least some will survive." As they hurried through the corridors toward the docking bay, Sarah kept pace beside Marcus. "This is crazy. You don't know what connecting with that thing will do to you?" "Maybe," Marcus replied. "But I've been thinking about what she said earlier, about humans having something her people lost. Kindness to strangers?" "Exactly. Maybe that's our real weapon against the hegemony. They create perfect killers, but they can't understand why someone would risk everything for people they barely know." They reached the docking bay to find Natasha's ship fully active. The iris opening had expanded, revealing an interior that pulsed with organic light. Tendrils of the same biomechanical substance that flowed through Natasha's veins hung from the ceiling like nerve endings waiting to make connections. "Are you certain?" Natasha asked as they approached the threshold of her vessel. Marcus looked back once at Sarah, then at the mining station that had been his home for 3 years. Somewhere out there, the hegemony fleet was closing distance, bringing death for everyone he cared about. "I'm certain," he said, and stepped into the alien ship. The moment his feet touched the organic deck plating, Marcus felt the ship's consciousness brush against his mind like whispered voices in a language he almost understood. The walls around him pulsed with gentle rhythms that matched his heartbeat, and he realized he was standing inside something that was very much alive. "Now we see," Natasha said softly. if human courage is enough to save us all. The interior of Natasha's ship defied every assumption Marcus had about spacecraft design. Instead of metal corridors and electronic consoles, he found himself walking through something that resembled the inside of a vast organism. The walls pulsed with bioluminescent veins carrying streams of data and nutrients, while the air hummed with an almost musical quality that seemed to resonate in his bones. This way, Natasha guided him deeper into the vessel, her movements more fluid now that she was back in her natural environment. The interface chamber is at the ship's neural center. Marcus followed, trying not to think about how the deck plating seemed to adjust its texture to provide perfect grip with each step. How exactly does this process work? The ship will extend neural tendrils to create a direct connection with your brain. Through me, you will be able to control its weapons and defensive systems as if they were extensions of your own body. She paused at a circular opening that dilated like an iris as they approached. But Marcus, I must warn you, the ship's consciousness is ancient and vast. Many who attempt integration lose themselves in its depths. The chamber beyond was breathtaking. They stood at the center of a spherical space whose walls were completely transparent, offering a 360-degree view of space around them. Suspended in the chamber's heart was a complex arrangement of biomechanical interfaces that pulsed with patient expectation. Your fleet is accelerating, Marcus observed, watching the tactical displays that appeared unbidden in the transparent walls. The hegemony ships had organized into attack formations, their approach vectors designed to eliminate any possibility of escape from the mining station. Time grows short, Natasha agreed. She moved to a control alcove and began adjusting settings with graceful hand gestures. Are you ready? Marcus approached the central interface, noting how the tendrils seemed to reach toward him with eager anticipation. What happens to you during this process? I become the bridge between human and ship consciousness. Your thoughts will flow through me to the vessel's systems. Her multifaceted eyes met his. It will be intimate. You will know me as no one ever has. Before Marcus could reconsider, the ship shuddered as the first long-range energy blasts from the hegemony fleet struck New Terra Station's outer shields. On the tactical display, he could see the mining station's defenses, pathetically inadequate against military-grade weapons, beginning to fail. Now or never, he muttered, and stepped into the interface array. The neural tendrils moved with surprising gentleness, extending from the walls and ceiling to make contact with his head and spine. Marcus felt a moment of cold fear as they penetrated his skin, then sudden warmth as the connection established itself. Consciousness exploded outward. Suddenly, Marcus was aware of every system aboard the ship. The quantum processors that served as its brain, the energy conduits that flowed like arteries, the weapon ports that ached to defend against the approaching threat. But more than that, he could feel Natasha's presence intertwined with his thoughts, her memories and emotions flowing through him like music. He saw her creation in the hegemony biofoundries, the careful gene crafting and cybernetic enhancement designed to make her the perfect infiltrator. He felt her first moment of true consciousness when she realized she was more than just a weapon, and the terrible loneliness that followed as she understood she was utterly alone in the universe. But he also saw her discovery of human culture through the databases she was meant to study for her mission. The art, the literature, the endless examples of individuals sacrificing for others without thought of reward. It was this exposure to human nature that had given her the courage to rebel against her creators. Marcus, her voice came from everywhere and nowhere, carrying harmonics that resonated through both the ship and his consciousness. Can you feel the weapon systems? He could. The ship's armaments were like additional limbs, particle cannons that could punch through heavy armor, defensive screens that bent space itself, and most remarkably, adaptive systems that could evolve new capabilities in real time. But accessing them required surrendering control to instincts that were utterly alien. The station's shields are failing, Natasha warned. Through the ship's sensors, Marcus watched the mining station's defensive barriers collapse under sustained bombardment. Soon the hegemony fleet would be in range to use precision weapons that would vaporize every human aboard. I need to move, Marcus said, and suddenly the ship was responding to his will. The mechanical legs beneath the vessel's hull extended and lifted them from the docking bay with smooth precision. Through his expanded awareness, Marcus could feel the mining station's artificial gravity trying to hold them, but the ship's systems compensated effortlessly. Space opened around them as they emerged from the station's protective embrace. The hegemony fleet filled the void ahead, sleek predators designed for nothing but destruction. At this distance, Marcus could see their weapon ports charging for the killing blow against New Terra Station. They haven't noticed us yet, Natasha observed through their shared consciousness. Good. Let's keep it that way. Marcus guided the ship into the asteroid field that surrounded the mining station, using the massive rocks for cover. The vessel moved through space with an organic grace that belied its size, the mechanical legs folding back against its hull while maneuvering thrusters adjusted their course with microscopic precision. There. Natasha highlighted a target through their shared awareness. The command dreadnought. If we disable it, the other ships will lose coordination. The target was enormous, easily 5 kilometers long and bristling with weapons. But through the ship's sensors, Marcus could see its weaknesses. The hegemony built their vessels for overwhelming firepower, not for defense against unconventional attacks. What are those? He asked, focusing on unusual energy readings from several of the smaller ships. Natasha's consciousness darkened with recognition. Harvester vessels. They're not just here to eliminate witnesses. They plan to strip mine the station for biological samples. Every human aboard will be taken for experimentation. Rage flowed through Marcus at the thought, and the ship responded to his emotion. Weapon systems that had been dormant for millennia began to awaken, their energy signatures building toward lethal readiness. Easy, Natasha cautioned. The ship feeds on strong emotions. Too much anger and it will overwhelm your human consciousness. But Marcus was already moving, guiding the ship out of the asteroid field toward the hegemony fleet. He felt rather than saw the moment when the alien vessels detected their approach, sensors locking on, weapons turning to track their movement, communications channels buzzing with surprised confusion. Unknown vessel, identify yourself, came a transmission in the musical language of the hegemony. Marcus let Natasha handle the response while he focused on weapon targeting. Through their shared awareness, he heard her reply in tones of confused innocence. Control, this is Infiltrator Prime. I am returning from successful mission completion. The human station has been secured. Confusion rippled through the enemy fleet's communications. Marcus used their momentary hesitation to close distance, bringing the ship's weapons into optimal range. Infiltrator Prime, your approach vector is unauthorized. Reduce speed and prepare for inspection. Too late for that, Marcus said grimly, and opened fire. The ship's particle cannons spoke with voices like thunder, their beams punching through the nearest hegemony vessel's shields as if they were tissue paper. Explosions blossomed across the enemy ship's hull, and Marcus felt savage satisfaction as it listed helplessly in space. But the surprise was over. The entire hegemony fleet was turning toward them now, their weapons charging for a concentrated barrage that would test even their advanced defenses. Now the real fight begins, Natasha whispered through their shared consciousness. And Marcus smiled, feeling the ship's ancient war spirit awakening in response to his determination. The hegemony fleet's response was swift and overwhelming. Dozens of energy beams converged on their position, forcing Marcus to push the ship's defensive systems beyond anything he'd thought possible. Reality bent around them as gravitational shields deflected the incoming fire, while adaptive armor plating shifted its molecular structure to absorb what penetrated their defenses. Through his neural link with the ship, Marcus felt every impact like physical blows. The vessel's consciousness was ancient and vast, carrying memories of battles fought across countless star systems, but even it had never faced odds like these. Their coordination is too precise, Natasha observed through their shared awareness. The command dreadnought is managing their battle network in real time. Marcus guided their ship through a complex evasive pattern, using the mechanical legs as additional maneuvering surfaces to execute impossible course changes. A wing of hegemony fighters swept past them, their plasma cannons raking the ship's hull with sustained fire. Then we take out the command ship, Marcus decided, angling their course toward the massive dreadnought at the fleet's center. Impossible. Its defensive screens are impenetrable, and it's protected by 3 layers of escort vessels. But Marcus was already accessing the ship's most exotic weapon systems, feeling their alien logic flow through his consciousness. The vessel had capabilities beyond conventional physics, weapons that could manipulate space-time itself. Not impenetrable, he said, activating a system that had no human equivalent. Just very well defended. Space twisted around them as reality distortion fields engaged. To outside observers, their ship seemed to stretch and blur, existing in multiple locations simultaneously, while quantum uncertainty made targeting impossible. The hegemony fighters found themselves firing at shadows while their prey slipped through dimensions like a ghost. Fascinating, came a new voice over the communications channels. Older, more sophisticated than the fleet commanders. The little weapon has found herself a pilot. How delightfully unexpected. Through the ship's sensors, Marcus could see a new presence emerging from the command dreadnought. A figure in elaborate biomechanical armor, floating in a personal defensive field. The being appeared humanoid but wrong, as if designed by someone who had only heard descriptions of human appearance. Architect. Natasha's consciousness recoiled with deep fear. He's here personally. Who is he? My creator. The one who designed me to destroy your species. The architect's voice continued across all frequencies, carrying harmonics that seemed designed to induce psychological distress. Return to me, my beautiful weapon. Your programming may be damaged, but you can be repaired. Together we will complete the harvest of this system. Marcus felt rage building in his chest, not just his own, but the ship's ancient fury at seeing one of its kind enslaved. The vessel's weapon systems responded to his emotion, charging to levels that made space itself tremble. He's trying to activate your control codes, Marcus warned Natasha, as he felt alien signals probing their neural link. They're gone, she replied firmly. I burned them out when I escaped. But Marcus, he has other weapons, things that can tear apart your mind through our connection. As if summoned by her words, psychic pressure slammed into Marcus's consciousness like a physical blow. The architect was attacking directly through their shared awareness, sending waves of despair and madness designed to shatter human sanity. Images flooded Marcus's mind. Earth burning under hegemony assault, his friends and family subjected to horrific experiments, humanity reduced to a slave species for alien entertainment. The visions felt completely real, carrying emotional weight that made him want to surrender rather than fight such overwhelming evil. But through the despair, he felt something else. Natasha's consciousness wrapped around his like protective armor, taking the brunt of the psychic assault onto herself. You cannot shield him forever, the architect taunted. His mind is already fragmenting. Soon he will be mine to command, and through him the ship will return to my control. Marcus gritted his teeth against the mental onslaught and focused on the command dreadnought. If they could eliminate the architect, the rest of the fleet would lose cohesion. But the massive vessel was surrounded by defensive screens that bent space itself, making direct attack impossible, unless they didn't attack it directly. Natasha, can you access the ship's dimensional systems? Yes, but why? Oh, understanding flowed between them instantly. You want a phase shift inside their defensive perimeter. Exactly. Get us close enough for the reality anchors to lock onto their hull. Then we phase shift the entire ship into their hangar bay. That's never been attempted with something this large. The energy requirements alone could burn out the ship's consciousness. Then we'd better do it fast. Marcus pushed their ship toward the command dreadnought, weaving between escort vessels while defensive fire lit up space around them. The architect's psychic attacks intensified, sending waves of terror that made it difficult to concentrate, but Natasha's presence in his mind provided an anchor of stability. Phase generators charging, she reported. We'll have one chance at this. Range to target? 5,000 meters and closing. Enemy fighters moving to intercept. The hegemony fighters came at them in perfectly coordinated attack runs, their plasma weapons designed to overload shields through sustained bombardment. Marcus felt the ship's defensive systems straining under the assault, hull plating beginning to buckle under the concentrated fire. 3,000 meters mind base. Generators at 80% charge. A particularly heavy blast from the dreadnought's main. Batteries sent shockwaves through the ship's consciousness, and Marcus felt the ancient entity's pain like his own. They were taking too much damage. The vessel's biomechanical systems were starting to fail under the sustained assault. 1,000 meters. Phase generators at full charge. Now, Marcus commanded. Reality shattered around them as dimensional barriers collapsed. For an instant that felt like eternity. They existed in the space between spaces, watching the physical universe from outside its normal constraints. Then the phase generators engaged, and they materialized inside the command dreadnought's hangar bay. Chaos erupted aboard the enemy vessel as their massive ship appeared where none should be. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut while atmosphere vented into space, but Marcus was already moving, extending the ship's mechanical legs to grip the dreadnought's internal structure. "We're inside their shields," Natasha announced with fierce satisfaction. "Then let's make this count." Marcus activated every weapon system simultaneously, sending the ship's firepower directly into the dreadnought's vital systems. Explosions rippled through the massive vessel as power conduits overloaded and structural supports failed. But more importantly, the psychic attacks from the architect suddenly ceased as the being found himself fighting for survival aboard his own dying ship. Through the ship's sensors, Marcus could see the rest of the hegemony fleet falling into disarray as their command network collapsed. Some vessels were already beginning to retreat, while others fired randomly at each other in confusion. "The architect is moving toward our position," Natasha warned. "He'll try to board us directly." "Let him come," Marcus replied grimly. "I have something to show him about human nature." But as he spoke, warnings flooded through their shared consciousness. The dreadnought's power core was destabilizing, building toward an explosion that would destroy everything within a light minute of their position, including New Terra Station. They had won the battle, but saving the mining station would require one more impossible choice. The dreadnought's power core pulsed with unstable energy that made reality itself ripple around them. Through the ship's sensors, Marcus could see the massive vessel's internal structure beginning to collapse as containment fields failed throughout its length. They had perhaps minutes before the explosion would sterilize this entire region of space. "We need to get clear," Marcus said. But even as he spoke, he knew it was impossible. The ship's phase generators were overloaded from their dimensional jump, and conventional engines wouldn't carry them far enough to escape the blast radius before the power core detonated. "There is another way," Natasha said quietly through their shared consciousness, "but it requires sacrifice." Before she could explain, the hangar bay's main entrance exploded inward. The architect strode through the breach, his biomechanical armor crackling with defensive energy fields. Up close, Marcus could see the being's true nature, not just alien, but something that had long ago discarded anything resembling natural evolution in favor of technological perfection. "My wayward creation," the architect spoke, his voice resonating through their neural link as well as the ship's audio systems. "You have caused considerable inconvenience." "I am no longer yours to command," Natasha replied, her consciousness burning with defiant anger. "Perhaps. But your human companion certainly is." The architect raised one hand and psychic force slammed into Marcus like a physical blow. But this time the attack was different. Instead of trying to break his mind, it was probing for control pathways, seeking to override his connection with the ship. "His neural patterns are fascinating," the architect continued conversationally while Marcus fought against the mental invasion. "So chaotic compared to properly designed consciousness. But chaos has its uses. It makes them unpredictable in battle." Through supreme effort, Marcus managed to speak. "You're afraid of us." "Afraid?" The architect's laughter was like breaking glass. "Of a species that has barely left its birth system? How amusing. Then why create weapons specifically to destroy us? Why not just conquer Earth directly?" The psychic pressure intensified, but Marcus held on to his sense of self through sheer stubbornness. Around them, the dreadnought continued its death spiral, power conduits exploding in showers of sparks and exotic energy. "Because," the architect said, his voice carrying undertones of genuine frustration, "your species refuses to behave rationally. Our strategic models predict you should have surrendered at first contact. Instead, you fight hopeless battles and sacrifice yourselves for abstract concepts like freedom and dignity. It makes you extremely inconvenient to govern, so you decided genocide was easier. Efficiency demands it. But first, we require detailed biological samples to ensure our weapons are completely effective. Your mining station will provide adequate test subjects." Rage flooded through Marcus at the casual dismissal of human life, and the ship responded to his emotion. Weapon systems that had been recharging suddenly came online, their targeting systems locking onto the architect with lethal intent. But the alien being was ready. His personal defensive fields flared to life, deflecting the ship's particle beams while he advanced toward their position. With each step, His psychic attacks grew stronger, probing for weaknesses in Marcus's mental defenses. "He's trying to reach the neural interface chamber," Natasha warned. "If he gains direct access to our connection, he can override both of us." Marcus tried to maneuver the ship to prevent the architect's advance, but the vessel's weapons were designed for space combat, not close quarters fighting inside another ship. Meanwhile, the Dreadnought's power core continued building toward critical overload. "Natasha, you mentioned another way to escape. What did you mean?" Her consciousness hesitated before answering. "The ship can absorb the Dreadnought's explosion by converting the energy into a dimensional cascade. But the process requires a biological component to remain stable. Specifically, my biomechanical systems would need to be permanently integrated with the ship's core consciousness." "What happens to you?" "I become part of the ship permanently. My individual consciousness dissolves into the greater whole." Marcus felt the weight of that sacrifice. Natasha would essentially cease to exist as a person, becoming instead a component in the ship's vast mind. But before he could respond, the architect reached the interface chamber's entrance. "Step away from the controls. Human," the alien being commanded, his psychic pressure now focused like a knife against Marcus's consciousness. "Your species has caused enough disruption." "No," Marcus said simply. The architect's expression shifted to surprise, then rage. "You cannot resist indefinitely. I designed the neural pathways you're using. I know every weakness in biological consciousness." "Maybe," Marcus replied, then smiled grimly. "But you made one mistake." "Which is?" "You assumed I was alone in here." Suddenly, Natasha's consciousness surged through their shared link, not to shield Marcus from the psychic attack but to amplify his own mental strength. Her memories, her knowledge, her fierce determination to protect humanity flowed into him, transforming their neural connection into something the architect had never encountered: true partnership. Between two willing minds, the alien being staggered, as his psychic assault met not one consciousness but two working in perfect harmony. Impossible. The integration protocols prevent such deep merger between species. "Your integration protocols," Natasha corrected, "based on domination and control. But we chose this connection freely." Marcus felt power flowing through him unlike anything he'd experienced. With Natasha's consciousness merged so completely with his own, he could access the ship's systems at levels that should have been impossible for human neural architecture. The vessel itself seemed to recognize their unity, opening pathways to its deepest capabilities. "The Dreadnought's power core has 90 seconds until detonation," Marcus announced, his voice now carrying harmonics that matched Natasha's alien tones. "Time to choose, Architect. Die here with your ship, or retreat and explain to your superiors how a single human and his defective weapon destroyed your entire fleet." The Architect's rage was palpable, but Marcus could see calculation behind the alien being's eyes. The explosion would indeed kill him if he remained aboard the Dreadnought, and teleportation through the unstable energy field surrounding the failing power core was extremely dangerous. "This is not finished," the architect snarled, then vanished in a flash of transported energy. Marcus immediately turned his attention to the dimensional cascade protocol. "Natasha, are you certain about this process?" "It's the only way to save the mining station. But Marcus, once I begin the integration, there's no reversing it." Through their shared consciousness, he felt her resignation mixed with determination. She had accepted death the moment she chose freedom over her programmed purpose. But this would be something beyond death, a dissolution of self into something larger. "Wait," Marcus said as understanding struck him. "You said the process requires a biological component to remain stable. But what if it had two biological components?" "You can't mean—" "I do. We're already merged at the neural level. If we both integrate with the ship's consciousness together, we might maintain our individual selves within the larger whole. The risk to you is mine to take." Around them, the Dreadnought shuddered as its power core approached critical mass. "They had perhaps 30 seconds to make the choice. Together?" Natasha asked. "Together," Marcus confirmed. As one, they reached for the ship's core consciousness, offering not just their knowledge and memories, but their very sense of self to the ancient entity. The vessel accepted their sacrifice with something that felt like gratitude, and began the process that would either save thousands of lives or destroy them all in the attempt. The integration began like drowning in reverse. Instead of losing consciousness, Marcus felt his awareness expanding beyond anything he had imagined possible. His human thoughts merged with Natasha's alien intellect and the ship's ancient wisdom, creating something entirely new while somehow preserving what made each of them unique. Through their collective consciousness, they felt the dreadnought's power core reach critical mass. Reality screamed as the containment fields failed and exotic matter began its conversion to pure energy. The explosion, when it came, was like a newborn star consuming everything within its reach. But the ship was ready. Dimensional barriers deployed around them, not to deflect the blast, but to channel it. The ship's biomechanical systems drank in the devastating energy like a plant absorbing sunlight, converting destruction into something far more useful. Space-time itself bent around them as they rode the explosion's wavefront, surfing the dimensional cascade back toward normal space. "Status report," Marcus found himself saying, though his voice now carried harmonics that no human throat could produce. "Integration successful," Natasha replied, her consciousness intertwined with his own yet still distinctly herself. All systems responding normally. The cascade absorbed 97% of the dreadnought's destructive energy. And the mining station? Their expanded awareness reached out across space to touch new Terra Station systems. The facility was damaged but intact, its inhabitants safe within their emergency shelters. The remaining hegemony ships had scattered when their command vessel exploded, leaving behind only debris and confused communications. "They're alive," the ship's ancient consciousness rumbled through their shared awareness. "Your people are safe." Marcus felt overwhelming relief, followed immediately by disorientation as he tried to process his new existence. He was still himself. His memories, personality, and human emotions remained intact. But he was also something more. Through the neural connection, he could feel every system aboard the ship, sense the flow of energy through its biomechanical organs, and access knowledge accumulated over millions of years. "How are you handling this?" he asked Natasha through their private communication channel. "Better than expected," she replied with something that might have been wonder. "For the first time since my creation, I feel complete. Not just a weapon or a tool, but part of something greater than myself. The sensation is similar for all successful integrations," the ship's consciousness added, "though I must admit, voluntary merger between multiple species is unprecedented in my experience." Through the ship's sensors, they watched rescue shuttles launching from New Terra Station to check for survivors among the scattered debris. Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled over the communication channels, trying to establish contact with their vessel. "Unknown ship, please respond. We're reading massive energy signatures from your position. Do you require assistance?" Marcus almost laughed at the question. After what they'd just been through, the idea of their advanced biomechanical vessel needing help from a mining station seemed absurd. But he caught himself before responding. These were his friends and colleagues, and they deserved better than alien condescension. "New Terra Station. This is Marcus Chen aboard the vessel." He paused, realizing he didn't know the ship's name. "I am called Yggdrasil," the ship's consciousness provided. "The world tree in one of your mythologies." It seemed appropriate for a vessel that bridges different forms of existence. "New Terra Station. This is Marcus Chen aboard the Yggdrasil. We're undamaged and standing by to assist with rescue operations." A long pause followed before Captain Rodriguez responded. "Marcus, what the hell happened to your voice? And where's our alien guest?" "It's complicated, Captain. I'll explain everything once we dock." But even as he spoke, Marcus could feel new complications arising. Through the ship's long-range sensors, he detected multiple hegemony vessels jumping into the system. Not attack ships this time, but something far more dangerous. Diplomatic vessels carrying negotiators and infiltrators. "They're not giving up," Natasha observed. "The architect survived and he's calling for reinforcements." "Different kind of reinforcements," the ship's consciousness corrected. "These are political operatives. The hegemony has decided to try subtlety instead of direct assault." Marcus studied the incoming ships with growing unease. "What kind of subtlety?" "They'll offer humanity membership in the hegemony," Natasha explained, her consciousness darkening with understanding. "Protection from alien threats, access to advanced technology, seats in their galactic government, all in exchange for certain accommodations, such as allowing hegemony observers to study human biology, accepting their educational curricula for human children, gradually replacing human leadership with beings more suited to galactic governance. Peaceful conquest, Marcus realized, make us dependent on their technology and grateful for their protection, then slowly erase everything that makes us human. Exactly, and after what happened here, many humans will be eager to accept such protection. Through the ship's communications array, they could already hear the hegemony diplomatic vessel, broadcasting messages of friendship and cooperation. The alien negotiators spoke of the unfortunate misunderstanding that had led to violence, and their desire to prevent such incidents in the future through closer cooperation between species. We have to warn them, Marcus said. With what proof? Natasha asked. Everything we know comes from my memories, and I'm a self-proclaimed escaped weapon. The hegemony diplomats will dismiss my testimony as the lies of a criminal fugitive. Marcus felt frustration building in his chest. They had saved New Terra Station from destruction, but the real threat to humanity was just beginning. The hegemony had learned that direct assault wouldn't work against humans, so they were switching to more subtle methods of conquest. There is another option, the ship's consciousness suggested quietly. I carry complete records of hegemony operations across this galaxy sector. Not just their plans for humanity, but evidence of what they've done to dozens of other species that no longer exist as independent civilizations. Would that be enough to convince Earth's governments? Perhaps, but transmitting such data would reveal our capabilities to the hegemony. They would know that this ship contains technologies far beyond current human understanding. Marcus considered the implications. If they revealed the ship's true nature, humanity would become a target for every ambitious alien empire in the galaxy. But if they remained silent, the hegemony would slowly strangle human civilization with a smile and a handshake. There's a third option, he said finally. We don't just warn humanity about the hegemony, we give them the tools to fight back. You mean share the ship's technology? Natasha asked. Not share, reproduce. The ship's consciousness can create offspring, smaller vessels with similar capabilities. If we establish a network of human-bonded ships like Yggdrasil, the hegemony won't be able to use their usual tactics. That would require willing human volunteers to undergo the integration process, the ship's consciousness warned, and there's no guarantee others could survive the merger as successfully as you have. Then we'd better find out, Marcus said grimly. Because the alternative is watching humanity disappear one compromise at a time. As the hegemony diplomatic vessels closed distance with New Terra Station, Marcus made his decision. They would dock with the mining facility, reveal the truth about the alien threat, and begin building humanity's defense against an enemy that conquered through kindness rather than conquest. The real war for humanity's future was just beginning. 6 months after the Battle of New Terra Station, Marcus stood in the observation deck of Earth's newest orbital facility, the Integration Center. Through the reinforced viewports, he could see humanity's growing fleet of biomechanical vessels, each one a unique fusion of human consciousness and ancient alien technology. The integration process had proven both more challenging and more successful than anyone had anticipated. Of the first 100 volunteers, only 37 had survived the neural merger. But those who succeeded had become something unprecedented in galactic history. Humans, who could match the hegemony's most advanced civilizations in technological capability while retaining their essential humanity. The hegemony delegation is requesting another meeting, Sarah Kim reported as she entered the observation deck. Dr. Kim had been among the first successful integrations, her scientific curiosity proving remarkably compatible with her ship's research-oriented consciousness. Ambassador Vex seems frustrated by our continued refusal to accept their generous offers. Marcus smiled grimly. Let him be frustrated. Every day we delay gives us more time to prepare. Through their shared neural network, he could feel the presence of the other integrated humans scattered across the solar system. They had become something like a collective unconscious for humanity, separate individuals linked by their ship bonds into a communications network that spanned light years instantaneously. Natasha, how are the outer system patrols reporting? Her consciousness touched his across the void, carrying warmth and affection alongside tactical data. Since their integration, their relationship had evolved into something beyond human understanding. Not romance exactly, but a partnership that transcended physical limitations. All quiet along the Jupiter routes, she replied, but we're detecting increased hegemony probe activity near the outer planets. They're mapping our defensive positions, expected. What about the construction projects? The shipyards at Titan are ahead of schedule. We should have 12 new vessels ready for integration within the month. Marcus nodded with satisfaction. Humanity's crash course in biomechanical engineering had succeeded beyond their wildest hopes. The ship consciousness called Yggdrasil had proven capable of reproduction through budding, creating smaller but equally sophisticated offspring that could bond with human volunteers. Each new ship was unique, shaped by the personality and needs of its human partner. Sarah's vessel resembled a vast laboratory, capable of conducting research at the quantum level. Captain Rodriguez had bonded with a ship optimized for tactical coordination, its consciousness perfectly suited to managing fleet operations. Others had developed capabilities for terraforming, deep space exploration, or diplomatic contact with non-hostile alien species. There's something else, Sarah continued, her expression troubled. We've been analyzing the data from Natasha's original intelligence files. The hegemony's expansion pattern suggests they're not just conquering individual species. Explain. They're systematically eliminating what they call chaotic elements from galactic civilization. Species that don't conform to their models of rational behavior. We've found evidence of at least 40 different civilizations that were absorbed or destroyed over the past millennium. Marcus felt cold understanding settle in his chest. They're not building an empire. They're enforcing conformity on a galactic scale. Exactly. And humans represent the most chaotic element they've ever encountered. We don't just refuse to surrender when we should. We actively seek out challenges that rational species would avoid. Through the observation deck's viewports, Marcus could see one of humanity's newest ships conducting field tests. The vessel moved through space with impossible grace, its pilot learning to use weapons and defensive systems that bent the laws of physics. 6 months ago, that pilot had been a cargo shuttle operator with no military training. Now she commanded technology that could destroy entire fleets. That's actually our advantage, Marcus realized. The hegemony can predict rational responses to any situation. But humans don't always behave rationally, which is why they're being so persistent with the diplomatic approach. Natasha added through their link. Ambassador Vex has been authorized to offer humanity almost anything. Advanced medicine, faster-than-light communication, defensive technologies that could protect Earth from any conceivable threat, all in exchange for accepting hegemony oversight of human development. Of course, they're offering to solve every problem humanity faces except the most important one, which is the right to remain human. Marcus turned from the viewport to face Sarah directly. What's your assessment of our current defensive capabilities? Against a direct military assault? We could probably hold our own now. The integrated ships are individually superior to anything in the hegemony fleet, and our tactical coordination is improving rapidly. She paused. But if they decide to commit their full resources to conquering humanity, we're still vastly outnumbered. Then we need allies. From where? According to the intelligence files, every other species in this sector has either been absorbed into the hegemony or destroyed. Marcus smiled, the expression carrying harmonics that would have been impossible for an unmodified human. Not every species. Remember, the hegemony targets chaotic elements for elimination. That suggests there are other species out there who've managed to avoid their attention by staying hidden. Through the neural network, he felt a surge of interest from the other integrated humans. The possibility of finding allies had been discussed before, but always dismissed as too risky. Sending ships beyond the solar system would expose humanity's capabilities to hegemony. Surveillance, you're suggesting we go looking for other survivors, Sarah said. I'm suggesting we stop playing defense and start playing offense. The hegemony expects us to either surrender or fight a losing battle from our home system. They don't expect us to take the fight to them. That's extremely dangerous, Natasha warned through their link. If we expose our ships to hegemony space, they'll learn our capabilities much faster. They're going to learn anyway. Better to control when and how that happens. Before anyone could object, new alerts began flashing across the observation deck's displays. Long-range sensors had detected multiple hegemony vessels jumping into the outer solar system. Not diplomatic ships this time, but military vessels in full battle configuration. Looks like Ambassador Vex got tired of waiting, Sarah observed grimly. Through the neural network, Marcus felt the integrated fleet responding instantly to the threat. Ships that had been conducting routine patrols suddenly shifted to combat formations, their consciousness-enhanced pilots reacting with superhuman coordination. All vessels. This is Fleet Command. Captain Rodriguez's voice echoed through both conventional communications and the neural link. We have multiple hostile contacts entering the system. All units move to intercept positions. How many ships? Marcus asked. 87 confirmed contacts with more jumping in every minute, Rodriguez replied. This isn't a diplomatic mission, it's a full invasion fleet. Marcus felt grim satisfaction alongside the fear. The hegemony had finally revealed their true intentions, which meant humanity could stop pretending to consider their offers of peaceful cooperation. All ships, weapons free, he commanded through the neural network. Defend our home. As humanity's biomechanical fleet moved to intercept the invaders, Marcus realized this battle would determine more than just Earth's survival. If they could prove that humans were too dangerous to conquer through conventional means, other hidden species might find the courage to reveal themselves and join the fight. The hegemony had spent millennia building their perfect, rational civilization by eliminating everything that didn't conform to their vision of order, but they had made one crucial miscalculation. They had underestimated the power of chaos itself. As the first energy beams lit up the darkness between worlds, Marcus smiled. Humanity was about to show the galaxy what happened when an unstoppable force met an unwilling target. The real war for galactic freedom was about to begin, and humanity intended to win it by being magnificently, chaotically, irrationally human.